longer Ollie's wheel. Ollie is no longer at the wheel. Last week, I said surely Manchester United couldn't lose to Watford. Not only did they lose, they conceded 4 goals. Their captain was sent off and their coach was duly removed afterwards. Welcome back to the EPL Show here on FNR Football Nation Radio. I'm Nick Hughes, and together with Josh Parrish, we will unpack all of the Manchester United, fun or not fun, depending on which side of the coin you sit, as displayed by my attire for the evening.
I'm really rubbing it
I'm
in
rather
today.
on one coin and Josh is on the other side.
Tell me, if Watford are the Hornets, why have they got a moose on their logo?
It's a good question. It's a great question. And unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. But
the Watford Mooses. I just forgot the plural for moose. The meese?
I don't know.
I guess it has to be just moose.
Yeah.
The Watford Moose.
The Watford Moose. Well,
Mice.
the mascot is the Hornet as well. It doesn't altogether make a great deal of sense, but
Neither does Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's reign at Old Trafford.
not at all. Josh, I think from a Manchester United fan's point of view, I think the loss. While no one ever really wants to lose, I think this is probably maybe the most joyous loss of any team's fandom this weekend.
Sorry, Lockie was just confirming in my ear that the plural of moose is indeed moose.
Ah, fantastic! Thank you, Lockie. I was nattering on about how Man United fans wouldn't have wanted to lose 4-1 to Watford, but given what happened after it could possibly be the most joyous of defeats that Manchester United have ever had.
I wish I had that little piece of audio here. He got the job on a technicality from a legend who recommended him.
Oh, Andy Tate. Can we bring back Andy Tate, please?
Oh, he was made for occasions such as this. It was genuinely a disgrace. Like, I know that's thrown about a lot in football circles, particularly English football circles, where they tend to get a little carried away each week on TalkSport. But this was genuinely one of the most shambolic performances I've ever seen from a quote-unquote big club. Most of the high-profile big score lines in recent seasons have been against the top clubs. But I guess this is on par with Liverpool's annihilation at the hands of Aston Villa, the 7-2. Just from where Watford are in the table and their expectations this season, I mean, they're relegation battlers. Yes, they've started the season pretty well, but it's a newly promoted side to be picked apart in that manner. I mean, at least when Manchester United were running around like headless chooks, not knowing what to do, they were running around. That was marginally preferable to the limp, listless display at Vicarage Road on the weekend. And Harry Maguire's red card was just the cherry on the cake. Look, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's reign lasted too long. He's Manchester United's longest-serving ever manager to not win a trophy.
Wow.
And only 3 managers have won the league in Manchester United's history.
Very true.
Which is, Sir Alex Ferguson, Sir Matt Busby, and some bloke in 1907 that nobody remembers the name of, but including me, apparently. But, still, at least Louis van Gaal won an FA Cup. At least Jose Mourinho won a Europa League and a League Cup. Ollie's won nothing, and he's had so many second chances, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances. Just because he's a club legend doesn't mean, he has a divine right to continue in the job. And his media mates have really prolonged this. I think, honestly, the club is really susceptible to the outside conversation that happens and the noise. And the likes of Gary Neville and Rio Ferdinand have, I think, a lot to answer for in their part to play, saying, we're never asked to sack a manager because they can't bring themselves to turn on their mate. It's over.
Well,
it was over a long time ago.
Rio Ferdinand, of course, did the famous or infamous, whack the contract
United
on the table.
are back.
Ollie's at the wheel, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And that in itself, you feel like is a real sliding doors moment. That PSG tie where it was it 2-0 defeat in the home leg and then a 3-1 win away from home was a fantastic comeback win. Obviously, Marcus Rashford scoring the late penalty, and you you almost feel like looking back at it now that there was an element of, that alone almost bought Ollie a lot of the time that he had. There were so many moments where, Chelsea acted very quickly on Frank Lampard. If Liverpool, you feel, had been in similar situations, you feel like they would have moved on their manager. A 6-1 defeat to Tottenham last year. They still end up, was it second, I think, in the league last year, but a poor finish to the season. The Liverpool result, really, I'm still and will forever remain staggered how he survived after losing 5-0 at home to Liverpool. Regardless of the gap between the two teams now, Manchester United cannot lose 5-0 at home to Liverpool. That for me would be unforgivable. And there was no way he was staying after a 4-1 defeat to Manchester United. And I think you can only look back and have a little bit of a chuckle when you look at the final scorer of the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer reign, Donny van de Beek.
I think it was on the national curriculum on Sunday that Ante compared it to the meme of I turned up at my hater's funeral just to make sure he was dead.
That was going around on Twitter. They photoshopped Donny's head onto that gentleman.
Look, Van der Beek's treatment at Old Trafford has summed up the disconnect at that club between between the recruitment and the management, and the total lack of understanding about what makes these players good. They're good at signing good talents for large sums of money, but they don't seem to know why they're signing them. This is what happens when you have a bunch of bankers in charge of who are the sporting directors. And essentially it comes down to Joel Glazer, whether Ollie stays or leaves, which, shouldn't be the case. Having ownership play that active a role, I think, is a mistake. I think it should be outsourced to someone who knows what they're doing. And Manchester United haven't had clear direction from board level or from, front office level in quite a long time. But Van der Beek, what made him so good at Ajax was his ability to play ahead of the ball and move teams around, essentially. He ghosted into the box unmarked or dragged players out of the way for Frankie de Jong to get himself into one-on-one situations and dribble past people. Basically, he alleviates pressure on the base of your midfield. Can he work as an 8 or a 6? Maybe. But that's a square peg in a round hole. And signing him when Bruno Fernandes is unquestionably your starting 10 is a bit confusing to me. Edwin van der Sar penned this open letter, took out a whole page of a newspaper to say you've got a gem, treat him well. And it's been quite the opposite. Van der Beek's continual sidelining at Manchester United. And the pattern has sort of continued with Jadon Sancho. He's a player who plays well in combinations. He's not a 1v1, isolate on the wing and from a standing start take somebody on and dribble past them. He's a player who does well in constructed moves and pattern play when he's got players around him to bounce passes off. And at United, it's just been giving the ball, you're the expensive new signing, you figure it out. No overlapping fullback to take a player away from him. No centre forward to play the ball into the feet of, just 1v1 stuff. And United were bailed out so many times by star players like Bruno Fernandes, like Pogba, like Ronaldo of late, doing fantastic individual things to save them in desperate circumstances, to bail them out. And that doesn't speak well of a manager if you're just relying on individual brilliance to save your bacon time and time again. And that's not sustainable for a modern football team.
It's interesting, the recruitment conversation. Last week we're talking a little bit about Chelsea and Frank Lampard's reign and how he didn't really want to sign Timo Werner and some of the other players that Chelsea brought in, and that the Donny van der Beek one was, I remember when he was signed, there was that conversation that, well, great player, but where does he go? And evidently, where does he go? Because he hasn't really featured for Manchester United. Interestingly enough, this morning he goes straight into the starting lineup with Michael Carrick in charge, which is an interesting one. We know that Manchester United have typically preferred the approach of keeping a coach. Certainly with David Moyes, they kept him for much of the season. The old give it Giggsy to the end of the season. Mourinho, once he was gone, Ollie was brought in initially on an interim basis and then sort of earned the permanent job there. So Michael Carrick has been given, quote unquote, interim charge at the moment. He surely can't be given a permanent role there. But I wanted to ask you, from certainly as a United fan, because one of my favourite pastimes has become watching the best bits of Mark Goldbridge after some of the Manchester United results. And he made the point of that, Ollie, what did he say? He said Ollie was the head coach, but he was 25% of a coaching team. And that Michael Carrick, Darren Fletcher and Mike Phelan should have gone with him. And we had this conversation last week surrounding Steven Gerrard. He's brought all his Rangers staff with him to Aston Villa. Incidentally, they, of course, picked up their first win on the weekend as well. So what are your thoughts on the direction that United should take with the whole staff? Because, I mean, look, if or when they do bring a new manager in, it is quite likely that they want to bring in their own staff as well. How long that'll take, I guess we'll see. But, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a few strands to pick apart there, I think. One is that the United board and Ed Woodward et al., whoever's making the decisions up there, it's very murky, John Murto, whatever, were wholly unprepared to sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They didn't even see it coming, which is crazy based on the results.
Yeah.
But they had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to sign Antonio Conte. They passed it up, said Ole's our man, and he's off to Spurs. Before that, they had an opportunity to sign Thomas Tuchel. They passed it up. He's smashing it with Chelsea. So there are various coaches that they could have brought in to radically transform the fortunes of the team, but they passed up that chance because they were still wedded to the idea of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and suddenly 2 weeks later he's gone. So that shows just a distinct lack of preparation and has led to the situation where it is necessary to put Michael Carrick in for the next game, because who are they going to sign? Who are they going to bring in on an interim basis to be the interim for the interim, which is the situation at the moment. They're trying to sign an interim manager, so Carrick is the interim, which is just shows the shambolic nature of that club and how it's organised.
So bizarre.
It's interesting to me that Solskjaer wasn't taking the training sessions. It turns out Carrick and the coaching staff were running the training. And Ollie was essentially just picking the team. So the only change is the team that goes out there on the park, which is an important change, obviously, but it's not everything. Carrick, if he does well, they might fall into the same trap as they did with Ollie, who was a great influence following the toxic nature of the team morale under Jose Mourinho. He was somebody who came in and lifted morale and therefore lifted performances, but it wasn't sustainable because he clearly just doesn't have the tactical brain for it.
Yeah.
Carrick, I'm not sure. I know nothing about him aside from his record as a coach under Solskjaer, which is probably not fair to judge him on. I did like the changes he made this morning in the Champions League, even if it's still McFred at the base of midfield, but starting Van der Beek, starting Sancho in his preferred position, and playing Ronaldo initially on a flank, I thought were all positive changes. Of course, Ronaldo's insistence to take up central positions ended up nixing that particular tactical adjustment. But there were still clear problems in the defeat to Villarreal. It looked unprepared, unsurprisingly. Their plan to press Villarreal seemed to have big holes in it, namely the, hesitancy. I think called it cowardice on my Twitter for McFred, that being Fred and Scott McTominay, to both press high up the park on the two midfield players for Valencia, Etienne Capoue and Danny Parejo. They didn't have a plan to stop Villarreal playing out from the back, and they certainly didn't have a plan to play out themselves. But maybe that will develop under Carrick. I think in the short term, given the position that they've put themselves in, this is, of course, self-sabotage. Putting Carrick as the interim boss is the best of a few bad options. I mean, who else are you going to get on that kind of notice? No one springs to mind until they can try and prize Maurizio Pochettino from his PSG contract. Yeah, but they should never have put themselves in this position in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And Zinedine Zidane has rumoured to have turned down any approach and said he's certainly not interested in being an interim solution. And
he doesn't speak English.
Possibly and quite likely not interested in being at Manchester United at all, given sort of the state of things above the manager's head.
I tell you what, Nick, if they sign Zinedine Zidane, it's only due to Ronaldo's influence, and that means Ronaldo is the director of football.
Yeah.
That's the only reason he would
Big
go
LeBron
there.
James vibes.
And I don't see why Zidane, having the immaculate record that he does, basically with all the trophies that he's won, would hitch his wagon to Ronaldo, who's now clearly past his peak. He's got so many limitations and shortcomings. Yeah. Zidane was able to alleviate some of those, but with one of the best midfields ever assembled in the modern game in Kroos, Modric, Casemiro, and Isco as well when he was playing as a number 10 that one season. When they went to a diamond was unbelievable. Benzema is that incorporative striker who does all the little things that Ronaldo doesn't. And Ronaldo on the end of the crosses, on the end of all that output, scoring goals and being the hero and winning them in the Champions League. You know, that was a great formula, but you can't replicate it at United because there is no Casemiro. There is no Luka Modric. So I don't see why he would hitch his wagon to Ronaldo at this point in his career. I just don't think he's a realistic target to start with because he doesn't speak English. He's waiting for the France job after the World Cup. Unless Deschamps departs before that, he's going to be France manager. And that makes sense given his, profile. You know, he's not really a hands-on coach. He's more of a leader who the players respect because of his playing profile. And he doesn't give much away in his press conferences, so it's hard to know how detailed his tactical plan really is. If you're going out to get somebody, you know, of the profile of the other top Premier League managers, they have philosophies, they have systems. Zidane, we don't really know what his preferred style of football is.
I remember one of the at-home shows that we did. I remember we had a discussion about we don't actually know whether or not Zidane is actually a good manager or not, or whether or not he's just exploited the fact that he had Cristiano Ronaldo, Benzema, Gareth Bale, Modric, Kroos, etc. That star-studded team that, of course, won the Champions League 3 times in a row. So, I mean, we're just going to have to watch this space with United. I mean, really anything could happen. We're talking about Michael Carrick. It really is a genuine option at this point. Certainly, looking from the outside, I mean, it's ridiculousness of Steve Bruce throwing his hat in the ring as well.
What a redemption arc that would be if he came in and was the man to turn Manchester United around. That would be hilarious.
Oh.
I mean, he did score double figures as a centre-back, so maybe he could inspire big Harry Maguire to pump those rookie numbers up.
Yeah, Harry Maguire's ears might be getting infected if he keeps having to score goals and put his fingers inside them to knock the haters, as I'm sure Roy Keane would love. But
looking at other options, obviously Pochettino is contracted at PSG with 3 of the biggest names in world football. Doesn't seem like he's enjoying it that much.
No.
And managers don't like, especially managers with a clear kind of vision of their football and who like to press from the front and have everybody pitch in, like Thomas Tuchel, now Pochettino, playing at PSG where the players don't seem to listen to you.
No.
It's not that much fun, and Leonardo's always pulling the strings and influencing from above. Graham Hunter this morning on the Stand coverage was absolutely convinced that Pochettino would fall out with Leonardo soon enough and Manchester United would pounce as soon as he gets sacked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would be pleased with that as a United fan. I think Pochettino should have been the manager a long time ago, and it's well overdue.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think really certainly the last 2, maybe the last 3 vacancies that Manchester United have had, you know, Pochettino has been one of, if not the favourite. And then, you know, for whatever reason, whether it was his loyalty to Tottenham or Daniel Levy's famous stubbornness in negotiations, just ask Pep Guardiola what he thinks about dealing with the Spurs man on that one. But yeah, Pochettino certainly seems to be, certainly from the reports that are going around and from a genuine common sense point of view, seems to be the most likely option. But Manchester United did bounce back this morning when, you know, a loss to Villarreal this morning could have been supremely damaging, but it turns out a win has them qualified for the Champions League knockout stages, which they, of course, didn't achieve last year. So Ollie's gone. They'll have to figure out a way to replace him. But for now, they are looking positive in the Champions League, moving into the knockout stages. But in Premier League football, they're sitting in 8th. Just a couple of points, a win away from Southampton in 13th, and they're going to Chelsea this weekend, which will be interesting enough. We'll talk about this weekend's Premier League fixtures a little later on the other side of the break that we're about to take.
Before we do, Nick, can I just add to what I observed this morning?
Of course.
McTominay and Fred standing next to each other when someone needs to present for the ball, not ideal. It represents the kind of delusion in modern coaching between what actually constitutes control and not. Because McFred, that double pivot there seems to suggest a more solid but defensive base. But all it is ground coverage. And it means that you lose footing in the match because you can't play out through pressure. It is absolutely puzzling to watch these two bumble about trying to receive the ball. And obviously United need a do-it-all number 6, which is hard to find. One of the rarest players in the modern game that can really transform things. A Jorginho type would be absolutely perfect. But short of that, I think the most sensible adaptation is to go to a 4-3-3, to play Bruno Fernandes and Donny van de Beek as two quote-unquote free number 8s, and Edinson Cavani up front, who can receive the ball with his back to goal and provide that kind of reference point for midfielders who need a target further forwards, or even for centre-backs. I mean, we've seen occasionally, Harry Maguire, as much as he's a walking, talking meme these days, he does have actually that passing range to punch a pass through and find the centre forward if they're presenting. Ronaldo on the left, Sancho on the right. That's my 11. I don't know if we'll see it, and it would require a little bit more defensive running from Bruno Fernandes. But having been benched, you saw his reaction when he came on the park when he was subbed on. He was pumped up. He was really raring to go and looking to prove himself, which might be a good thing in terms of, motivating a guy who's been the first name on the team sheet for quite some time. It can backfire, of course, with an ego like Fernandes. He's a big personality, but it looked good. It was, like that bit in The Simpsons. I've been starving him, singing off key. He was frothing at the mouth like one of Chief Wiggum's police dogs. So I enjoy watching him. I enjoyed watching Jadon Sancho score his first goal for the club finally with that pile driver. He was magnificent and the best player in the second half. And, with a few changes in the team, United could quickly turn their fortunes around and then make another mistake in appointing an interim manager permanently. We might do this all over again.
I look forward to it. It will be interesting to see what Michael Carrick does. Being a midfielder, whether or not he can impart some of his experience on the midfield. And just before we head to the break, just to finish off on what you were talking about there, I wanted to read some quotes from Paul Merson, who is... obviously very well known for saying some odd things on the television, but I thought this was quite bang on about Ronaldo. He said, "I feel sorry for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He had a plan at the start of the season, having finished second. He'd chased Jadon Sancho for a long time, got him in, and he'd given Edinson Cavani another year. And then he said, you could see his plan. You play Cavani every other game. You have Sancho on one side, Rashford on the other. You have Mason Greenwood coming in and swapping around. You have pace, power, energy, youth, skill, the lot." And then when that plan changed was when Cristiano Ronaldo came in. And Paul Merson hinted that he felt sorry for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because Ronaldo comes in and he said it snowballed from there. The Ronaldo situation threw it all out the window. And I think it's a very fair point.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think he's still clearly underqualified for the position to begin with. I think his shortcomings were exposed well before Ronaldo got there. The problem for a new manager is dealing with Ronaldo, though. He's, as funny as it is to say about a player who scores so many important goals, he's sort of an anchor around the neck of potential incoming managers because he is such a big personality. He is such a complicated... he has a complicated set of attributes and shortcomings to fit into a cohesive modern football team. And in many ways, Messi at Paris Saint-Germain at this stage in his career is the same. Late career Ronaldo is not an easy person to plan around. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer clearly was not up to that task, not even close. So I guess we'll take a break here.
We will.
On the EPL show and come back with a bit of Liverpool-Arsenal chat.
Yes, I look forward to it. Chelsea, of course, also played in the Premier League, in the Champions League this morning. And a few other interesting Premier League results to unpack from the weekend. So don't go anywhere.
Whether you're a land developer, in local government or a service authority, Lenco Group will help you get your job done on time and in a cost-effective manner. Lenco Group provides superior civil engineering and advisory services by creating, communicating and delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. For all your infrastructure requirements associated with residential, commercial or industrial development projects, visit our website lencogroup.com.au or give us a call today on 1300 152 626.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Back to the EPL Show on FNR Football Nation Radio. We've just spent just shy of half an hour unpacking the Manchester United debacle, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's sacking and contrasting results, but rather identical performances for Man United in their last two games. A 4-1 defeat to Watford on the weekend, followed by a 2-0 win this morning against Villarreal that secured their spot in the knockout stages of the Champions League, and also securing their spot in the knockout stages of the Champions League were Chelsea. Not only that, but they've jumped to top of their group after dismantling Juventus, a Juventus side that were 4 from 4 in the Champions League heading into this morning, a Juventus side that beat Chelsea in the second, I believe, or potentially, second match day of the Champions League. And Chelsea just blew by the old lady. It didn't ever really look like a contest. Reece James is just turning into an absolute goal-getter for Chelsea. Trevor Chalobah as well is chipping in. I think that's his third goal in all competitions.
I hate to break it to you, Nick, but it's match day 5.
No, it's
the second meeting of Chelsea and Juventus.
No, as in Juventus beat Chelsea on the second match day in the reverse fixture. Yes.
Chelsea were rampant this morning. What happened? Obviously not me for a 6 because I'm barely functioning after getting up to these matches this morning. It was a good watch, I have to say. They are a very disciplined team. They play at a ridiculous pace and they're really hard to contain. I don't think Juventus did themselves any favours with that midfield selection.
I'm sorry, I can't get over Lucky eating a bag of spinach outside.
Funny how late on a Wednesday night.
Dear. Oh dear. But no, you're exactly right. Chelsea are in tremendous form.
Chelsea have been eating their greens, much like Lockie Flanagan, our producer.
They really have. Apart from one slip up really out of left field against Burnley a couple of weeks ago. I think it was the game before the international break where they drew 1-1. They're just really rolling past opponents, and like I said, this was a Juventus team that domestic form aside, they were 4 from 4 in the Champions League. They were starting to look like commanding that group, and they've just totally picked them apart. 21 shots to 8. 8 of them on target. Reece James, like I said, not only did he score the goal, he had another brilliant chance that was fantastically saved. The Hudson-Odoi goal was both bizarre and brilliant in its own way. I think it was Hakim Ziyech was somehow afforded to keep the ball in between about 6 Juventus players right on the penalty spot just about. Timo Werner comes off the bench, continuing his return from injury to score a goal. Romelu Lukaku didn't come on, but he's back on the bench and back fit. So he's obviously only going to make the team better as well. And you look at the bench that Thomas Tuchel had. I mean, even players like Ross Barkley, like Ruben Loftus-Cheek are playing somewhat of a role. They're regulars on the match day team sheet, and they're coming in and they're doing a job. And some of the guys that were unused here, Marcos Alonso was fantastic in the earlier part of the season. Ben Chilwell has now wrestled that spot back. Andreas Christensen has been first choice at the back and wasn't needed at all. Their captain doesn't even play, Cesar Azpilicueta. Mateo Kovacic is injured. Good to see Christian Pulisic and Hakim Ziyech both getting starts because they don't play a great deal anymore. But, I mean, it's hard to make a case for anyone really stopping Chelsea at the moment in any competition.
I can't help but when I see this Chelsea squad, there's the embarrassment of riches that you've gone through there. Think back to Harry Redknapp's interview, his radio interview, the morning after Frank Lampard was dismissed as Chelsea manager, and the litany of excuses he rolled out for his son-in-law. Did he bring the players in? Did he bring the Germans in? He also said...
Fantastic impression.
Thank you. I'll see if I can keep it going in the next line. He said, I'm yet to see a manager who can turn average players into great players. I'm yet to see someone who can do that. And apparently it's Thomas Tuchel. Harry Redknapp, you've got the example there right in front of you. Apparently a set of quote-unquote average players are running rampant at Stamford Bridge. I mean, this is a phenomenal squad. And yes, Timo Werner was notoriously short on confidence and missed a lot of chances. Yes, early in Frank Lampard's reign before Mendy came in, they had a goalkeeper who was throwing a few in every few weeks. So that didn't help. But this team seems to be plug and play. 3-4-3. Anyone in those forward positions is scoring and doing a good job. Christian Pulisic, or Pulisic, I should say, as he pronounces
Christian
Pulisic started as the false number 9, and he did a good job. Hudson Odoi, a player who was pretty much sidelined under Tuchel when he first came in, has played as an inside forward, as a wing back, and is now finding minutes. He's finding a way to succeed in this setup. And I think Thomas Tuchel, honestly, is the best example of a perfect balance between prescriptive coaching and freedom to choose options on the field. I think there are coaches like Nagelsmann at Bayern Munich who I think lean too heavily towards the automatisms, the rehearsed pattern play that actually stifles players sometimes. And there are other coaches like Solskjaer, for example, who are way too laissez-faire and the players have no idea what they're doing.
Go and do whatever you like, Ronnie.
Exactly. Just run about, like Harry Redknapp said to Roman Pavlyuchenko before he came on to score a hat-trick one time at Tottenham.
Pavlyuchenko, what a player.
Pulling the references out of nowhere. But Tuchel, I think, gets the balance spot on, and that's why he's smashing it so far. Full respect and hats off to Thomas Tuchel, because I think really coming off his previous jobs as well, I think maybe it's harsh just to say, but there's certainly a prevailing attitude that winning the league with PSG isn't such a great achievement necessarily. Obviously, it's fantastic to win the league. It was beyond Poch, apparently,
to win a league
last
anywhere.
season.
Yeah, very true. But there was that attitude that, he's won the league at PSG, but he never did anything in Europe. There was certainly an attitude that he didn't get the full potential out of his Borussia Dortmund squad. So coming into Chelsea, honestly, when they hired him, I did wonder if it was a case of, they've signed the German players, so now they're signing the German manager to help make the German players fit. And I wasn't so sure that it was going to work, but I mean, it was just another one to add to my long history of well off the mark predictions, because Chelsea have gone on to win the Champions League and are in control in the Premier League at the moment. They've conceded 4 goals in the Premier League in 12 games. It's ridiculous.
And Rudiger, player who was sidelined under Lampard,
superstar.
I think he's the best centre-back in the world.
at the moment.
Might be a
agree.
big shout.
No, I agree 100%. He is just outstanding to watch. I think you guys were asking Ben Garuccio and Steve Horvath about Leo Lacroix, about his adventures into midfield. Those couple of clips, I think it was one of the Champions League games. I know Kurt Zuma did one last season for Chelsea, but Rudiger, when he just took the ball and ended up all the way on the edge of the box and had a shot, he's always been that sort of player, that sort of gangly, long arms, long legs.
He doesn't look coordinated, but suddenly he is.
And he does a bit of the extreme. He goes a bit bonkers sometimes. He'll go for a run or he'll fly in for a challenge. But goodness, he's effective, and he's again all of the defenders. He's chipping in with goals from set pieces, as he did on the weekend against Leicester. So no, I fully agree with that assertion that he's the best defender in the world at the moment. And the issue for Chelsea is tying him down to a new deal, because in about 37 days...
I think you were about to say 5 minutes. Look at the watch there.
Bayern Munich and Real Madrid can submit an offer for Antonio Rudiger.
So his contract expires. I did not know that. All right. Yeah. Well, that's a big talking point over next month. I mean, he's going to want big money, I imagine, based on his performances. I've seen a lot of hype around Andreas Christensen this season and his performances. What have you made of him in the Premier League? Obviously, being part of this unit that Tuchel has built makes a lot of defenders look good. But Christensen not required against Juventus this morning, but has had some great form for Denmark coming off the back of that Euros campaign, making all the way to the semi-finals in a very defensively stout team. And then, of course, Chelsea now, part of probably the best defence in the world.
I've always really liked Andreas Christensen. I remember when he came up, I can't remember necessarily what season it was, but when he came through into the first team, it might have been actually that year under Conte that he sort of started making a few more regular appearances in the 16-17 season. I've always been a big fan of him. He's a strong defender. Tall but can play with the ball, which I think in a 3 at the back formation, I think
it's crucial.
As much as the interchangeability, if you like, of the forwards is important. Having the centre backs that can play on the right or the left or the middle, and having them all be able to combine and bring the ball out of defence and link with the midfielders and hit the wing backs, etc. I think is massively important, and I've always been impressed by Christensen. So it was the year after they won the title with Conte. So 17-18 was when he made 27 appearances. Prior to that, he'd only made his debut, and that was it. He hadn't played at all before. But yeah, I think he's great, and he's still only 25 years old. As you mentioned, Denmark have really hit a bit of a golden generation at the moment. Had a fantastic World Cup, and not qualified yet because they came. No, I'm thinking Poland. They are qualified. I was thinking of Poland in England's group, so they are qualified for Qatar 22 as well. And look, if Christensen does leave, they have. If Rudiger leaves, they have Christensen ready-made to jump in and play more than he currently is. He's already playing plenty. He's played 8 of the 12 Premier League games. As we mentioned, he wasn't needed this morning, but he played all 4 of the previous Champions League group stage games as well.
I think they will need to go into the market for someone if Rudiger decides to go. I don't know what the market for Rudiger is like at the moment with, the 2 Spanish giants struggling financially, particularly Barcelona's not in the running. I don't think Serie A could necessarily compete financially for Rudiger's signature. So it's really up to the rival Premier League clubs or PSG or maybe Bayern Munich.
Yeah, well,
but Bayern's got to be in for him because he's German, right? They always want to get the German national team players.
Yeah, exactly. I think Bayern Munich and Real Madrid have been the 2 linked or most heavily linked, and I'll see if I can find it while we're going. But there were some quotes from someone at Bayern, Rummenigge it might have been.
Usually it's Rummenigge.
Yeah, saying someone asked him about this contract situation, and he said, we've just signed Upamecano, but we're always looking at good players, and Rudiger's no different, etc. So a bit of that sort of cryptic comment. And I mean, it can go either way. I think certainly speaking from first-hand experience as a Liverpool fan, last season, we were. So in Australia, we were waking up every morning hoping to see that Gini Wijnaldum had signed a new deal, and sort of the longer it goes on, the more you start to think, well, hang on, there's time's running out, and he could well be on the way if there's no deal incoming. Yeah, so I've found these quotes. So if I can find what he was saying.
Yeah, because my point being that Christensen coming in, of course, is a good option, but Thiago Silva also not getting any younger. Not that that's seeming to impede his performances so far. He made a ridiculous acrobatic clearance off the line this morning. And
37 years old, by the way.
Yeah, paid a bit of a price. I think he actually went through the net and crashed into one of the cameras behind the goals, which, less than ideal. I think he hurt his ankle, but he stayed on. But he's not getting any younger, of course, and having a centre back with that kind of confidence to stride out in possession, as most of the Chelsea centre backs seem to do, would be high on their recruitment list if Rudiger is to leave.
Yeah, for sure. I think at 37 years of age, coming off the season before his last season at PSG was, of course, his Champions League final. He'd obviously captained that side for quite a long time, had done very well. He came in and was injured quite early, and you were sort of thinking, injury.
This has the makings of a bust.
Yeah, injuries, age, it wasn't quite going to work, but he was one of the best defenders in the league across last season.
We keep talking about Chelsea defenders as being best in the league, best in the world, and so forth. There's a common theme here. I think the system is helping these guys out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, who knows how long he can go for? I think his contract might end at the end of this season as well.
And it's a luxury to have a player like Kante in front of you to cover those spaces. I think a lot of defenders can be exposed by a lack of midfield coverage and vice versa. They sort of live or die on the pressure and defensive presence that their midfields provide. And if they get into these one-on-one situations in wide open spaces, like Harry Maguire has a lot of the time, you can be made to look like a bit of a clown. Whereas you look at Maguire's Euros campaign with England, where he had Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice just screening in front of him the entire tournament, and that team didn't concede a goal until the semi-finals.
Yeah, and you only need to take a look at the European Championships as a whole and see how this three at the back movement has sort of taken over. Certainly in tournament play, I think in excuse me, in the Champions League as well, where we're starting to see more of it, and where once it was perhaps considered a bit archaic. I remember plenty of coaches, even quite recently with Louis van Gaal returning to the Netherlands national team. A reporter asked him about playing defense, or why is he so defensive? He plays a five at the back, and he hit off at the journalist and said, "Look at Chelsea; they're playing some of the best attacking football in the world with a five at the back." And
it all depends on the implementation of that system. It's not about the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And you only need to see how well the wing backs are working and getting forward. Chilwell's even been scoring a couple of goals, swinging some great deliveries into the box. The fluidity of that front three that we've mentioned as well. Chelsea, they
look like the team to beat.
It's tough to admit.
And who's going to get in their way?
Business.
Who's going to get in their way? Is it going to be the side that smashed 4 goals past Arsenal?
I hope so.
At Anfield on the weekend.
I hope so, because you look at that performance from Liverpool, and I think at their best, they can go toe to toe with anyone. This Liverpool team, I think
Mikel Arteta was trying to go toe to toe with Jurgen Klopp on the sideline.
I would love to see them jump in the ring. There's
a bit of a height disadvantage for Mikel on that one. I think it was a bit of a hold me back fight. Don't think Mikel really wanted a bar of Klopp, who has about a foot on him.
Yeah,
and a terrifying set of teeth as well on that bloke.
As soon as Klopp came marching over, it was a bit of it's the classic. I don't know what movie it's actually from, but where the woman's going like that, and then there's the cat hissing from the chair at the dinner table. I don't know what movie it's from or what scene it is or whatever. It was, but it was quite an apt depiction of what happened on the touchline. But really, that moment was the spark for Liverpool to take the game over, because quite soon after,
You won't like them when they're angry.
exactly, heavy metal football and all that. Quite soon after that, Mane got a yellow card and then scored, and then 3 second-half goals in the space of 25 minutes or so, and that was that. And Liverpool continue this just quite peculiar dominance of Arsenal, certainly at home. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I reckon it's probably back 6 years now. Every time Liverpool have played Arsenal at home in the league, they've scored at least 3 goals, and it's quite
not a good record that Arsenal have against almost any of the top sides.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this, and even over the weekend while we were all together in Geelong, obviously Bakua being a big gunner. We were talking about the same thing, that Arsenal clearly have this issue of
not being able to make the leap.
Yeah, beating up the teams below them, but when it comes time to take that next step and beat some of the better teams, I don't know if they go into their shell a bit, or Arteta just doesn't quite have the managerial acumen to sort of break down a big team. I think it would probably be a harsher assessment of Arteta, given what he did early doors in his Arsenal reign. He beat Man City a couple of times, won the FA Cup. I was about to say FFA Cup. Goodness me. But yeah, it's an issue for Arsenal, and this is an Arsenal team that is still very much in the midst of a reform and a rebuild. So any positive result is fantastic, but they're not realistically they're not looking at trophies for still another few years, and with more recruitment and with more games in your Smith Rowes, in your Sakas, they'll get better. I see you've got the past results there. You're doing some mental maths.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out the last time Arsenal won a Premier League game at Anfield, and I think it was 2012.
Wow.
So they've won a few of these ties over the years. There've been a couple of draws.
Yep.
In terms of the overall matchup, there was, of course, one EFL Cup win on... was that a penalty shootout?
Yeah, penalty shootout, yeah.
I was going to say, it said 5-4 on FOTMOB, but I was going to say, I don't remember that particular.
Well, there was...
League Cup, Liverpool play rotated sides.
Yeah,
so.
and the season before that, there was a 5-5 after 90 minutes in the League Cup that,
That's right,
that Liverpool won the penalty shootout on that occasion. But
that one comes up as 10-9.
Love
what
that.
A game.
But there was sort of a period where Arsenal beat the would-be champions Liverpool after they'd wrapped up the league in 2020. They then beat them in the Community Shield, and then beat them in that League Cup tie that you mentioned. And it was sort of starting to be a little bit of, well, hang on, we're very used to beating Arsenal, so what's happening here? But in league action, it's very much
it's pretty one-way traffic.
Gone back to
Why do you think that is? Because I remember a discussion on, I think it was back in the first lockdown on the English Football Show, about Mikel Arteta playing out from the back, very deep, playing into the corners, his own corners, and getting sort of stuck there. And I think, if I remember correctly, you were on Mikel Arteta's side in this particular debate.
I remember I had a debate with Chris,
whereas Chris was less enthused by this kind of strategy. Where do you stand on it now? Is it effective against the top teams like Liverpool? We've put so much forward pressure on and disrupt Arsenal's passing game.
Yeah, I think he definitely has to be smarter with it, and I think last week when we were talking about Norwich, it's a little bit of a similar scenario where you sort of have to read who you're up against, and when it doesn't work, this is a handful of times in a row now going to Anfield where it's just not worked. Something has to click in your head to change something, and I do still stand by Mikel Arteta and like what he's doing with the Arsenal team, how he came in and there was so much talk about I don't know if he said it or someone else said it, that these players had never been taught how to play out of the back properly, and he was going back to the basics of, basically junior football. Yeah, exactly.
It was pretty depressing stuff.
Yeah,
in that athletic piece.
That's
Arteta
right,
has
the
a
athletic.
WhatsApp group, which makes him different. I love those long reads. They were just listing like basic, like rudimentary improvements. It makes you think about the state of things beforehand.
Yeah, it was pretty tough.
Sort of propaganda pieces, those in-depth articles, especially when it's the hype job for the new coach. It tends to be like, who's contributing to that piece?
Yeah.
It's their people. Who's giving the quotes on that front?
Yeah, very true. But I mean,
Unai Emery's team was playing out from the back very well this morning in his Villarreal side. So I don't understand why he couldn't teach the Arsenal players to do the same.
Yeah, I think in quite a similar way that we've seen managers post-Fergie not quite hit it at Manchester United. I think Emery perhaps struggled with a bit of an Arsene Wenger hangover. But again, I've said it multiple times before on this platform and on other platforms as well, and just in general conversation, that I really do like Arsenal. I like what they're doing. I like Arteta. But yeah, certainly this game and the previous meetings with Liverpool are a clear indication that there has to be a plan B for these bigger games, because, and I mean, look, there's going to be errors playing out of the back all the time, but Nuno Tavares saying, Diogo Jota,
have the ball.
I would like, please score for me. That can't quite be accepted. And
maybe he got confused, thought they were playing international football.
Yeah, quite possibly.
To his Portuguese teammate.
Well, he's if Tavares is getting picked for Portugal, he's going to have to start building that connection to try and make sure they get through the World Cup playoffs in a few months' time. But it's an interesting one for us. I think, like I said, this transition period will naturally sort of lead them to, not quite being at the level of the top teams. And if they're winning games that they're expected to and not quite beating the big teams, and they still finish 5th or 6th, to me, I think that's a success for the situation that Arsenal are in right now. Give it a couple of years, some more signings, some more work under Arteta, and if they're still not really properly pushing for top 4 in 2-3 years, then I think there's the issues will probably start to become apparent. But talk a top 4, they're only 3 points off 4th at the moment, and
they're in touching distance. If they get back in the Champions League,
that'll be
that's
massive.
Dare I say it, 4th place is a trophy. As Arsene Wenger said for years, to much derision, it is a trophy these days.
They haven't come 4th for a long time. So particularly for Arsenal, it'll be massive. I think even Jurgen Klopp recently, when he's been asked about the side that he's going to field tomorrow morning against Porto, despite the fact that it's a dead rubber, and he's openly said a Champions League win equals £2 million for the club every game you win. And, I think if you win the entire League Cup, you get like £500,000 as a comparison. So that'll be massive for Arsenal. We all know, obviously, European football attracts better players, and it can snowball from there. But enough about Liverpool and Arsenal. As much as I would love to continue, we've had our in-depth Man United talk. We've had our in-depth Liverpool talk. We'll rattle off a couple more of the results as we head into the end of the show.
I want to ask about Stevie G and Aston Villa. Winning start. He's come in. He's banned ketchup, which is the in vogue thing
Has
to
he
do.
really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
he won't be signing Ben Foster, that's for sure.
There's an excellent piece in The Guardian by Jonathan Lew about the ketchup wars in British football. And what it represents, sort of Puritanism versus hedonism and all this. It was a great piece. I can't believe he got 900 words about football and ketchup. But Conte and Stevie G, that's one thing they have in common.
Wow, yeah, that's very funny.
I've blown my F&R quiz question now. Which condiment did Antonio Conte and Steven Gerrard both banned in their respective clubs? I don't know if that was the 1%er that led to the victory over Brighton. But Brighton, they had so much hype about them last season. This team, it's going to be a return to form based on the XG. They're going to be better this year, and they've been competitive in nearly every game they've played, but they're just not getting wins. It's not picking up 3 points.
You're right. It's 7 games without a win now. In fairness to them, that run only has 2 losses. They're just drawing an awful lot of games. They of course drew with Liverpool at Anfield, which is a great result in isolation. They lost to Man City, which you can't necessarily complain about. And I mean, draws against Crystal Palace and Arsenal. Again, they're not outwardly poor results given the form that both of those sides are in. But
they can't score goals. They've scored 12 goals in 12 games this season. It's a poor return.
It's been their issue for so long, the XG Kings, and where it looked like they'd finally turned that corner early doors in the season. They were they were in the top 4 after a handful of games. I think it was a great win against Everton at the end of August. I think set up for the first headed into the first international break.
Bizarrely enough, they've now got a better goal difference than Arsenal, which is kind of astonishing if you think about it. Arsenal scored 1 more goal and conceded several more than Brighton, but they just can't get these tight games. They don't seem to be able to score the crucial goal. They've had a couple of score draws. They've kind of drawn a few blanks recently. I think it's up to, unfortunately, the most volatile forward in the Premier League in Neil Maupay to deliver the goods for them.
Yeah, goodness, he's... Again, like I mentioned, early doors in the season, it looked like he was going to be that guy. He scored.
They didn't even start him against Villa. They started Trossard and Lallana. There's no number 9 in there,
and that's what they had to do for quite a lot of last season as well, because Maupay just isn't scoring. I think Danny Welbeck is injured as well. In fairness to him, but they opted not to sign a striker in the summer. Whether or not that was not for a lack of trying, we'll never know. But they strengthened other areas of the pitch. They, of course, lost Ben White as well. But I'll live by and die by this Brighton team. I think it is going to click, and when it does, I really think they're a special team. And I think even now they're 9th. I think if they finished the season in 9th, they would be absolutely wrapped with that.
They just keep drawing
whether or not it's actually their full potential is maybe another question, but you look at the teams above them, it's all of the traditional big 6 plus West Ham and Wolves, who, again, we spoke about last week, have somehow ended up in 6th place without anyone really noticing them. But yeah, you're exactly right. Brighton just keep on drawing, and it's so important in the middle pack of teams in any league, really, where it's going to be so tight between your 8th, 9th, all the way down to 12th, 13th, 14th, even 15th, where you're probably starting to get at risk of slipping into a relegation battle. Turning 1 point into 3 and picking up those 2 extra can be so massive. And Brighton's 5 draws, only Burnley and Newcastle, who both have 6 and are both in the relegation zone, and Crystal Palace, who have 7. They're the only 3 teams that have more than Brighton's 5. So they'll look to turn it around with a win against Leeds, who
are a bit out of sorts.
Yeah, very, very much so.
They can't seem to convert their chances, and in a similar boat. I wonder whether there's a bit of Bielsa fatigue setting in. I mean, that's always the narrative whenever Leeds isn't doing well. It's sort of a cheap tactic to take.
It is.
But they did burn out almost in the season they got promoted, and there was a presenter that copped a lot of flack for this point of view, but I think the COVID lockdown did actually help them get promoted that season, because they had a nice long rest before they came back and finished the season strong. They were on a terrible run, and then they alleviated it. So maybe if we had a Christmas break in the Premier League, the Leeds would fly through the second half of the year. Not so. I want to talk about Norwich, though. 2 wins on the bounce, 2 different managers.
Massive.
Against Southampton, a team somewhat out of sorts, but still another 3 points for a relegation-threatened outfit who's been a bit of a punchline this year. Won a game, sacked Daniel Farker, now Dean Smith's in charge. I mean, what is going on at Carrow Road?
Yeah, it's. I mean, we keep bringing up memes and pop culture references today, but I immediately think of the Black Panther. We don't do that here.
We don't win games in Norwich, but apparently they do.
Apparently,
it's in vogue now.
And I said last week, I mean, if Dean Smith can engineer some sort of turnaround at Norwich,
they're off the bottom.
They're not yet out of this race, and you're exactly right. They're on to 8 points. Newcastle are still without a win on 6. And Norwich are only 3 points adrift of Leeds, who are in 17th. So if this is truly a bit of a Dean Smith turnaround, then all of a sudden we're looking at, Norwich may well still go down, but we're looking at a team that'll at least maybe fight, and maybe it'll only be briefly, but at least fight for their own safety in the Premier League, rather than the last time they were in, where, a lot of people sort of just gave up on them. I think probably the players realised quite late on into the season that it was going to be coming to an end, and sort of that was that. But
I think they have to beat Newcastle in 2 weeks.
It's huge. It's a huge game.
I'm not saying it's a 6-pointer, but it kind of is. Look, they've got Wolves this weekend. I think that's a winnable game. Wolves have been pretty inconsistent. It's not going to be easy, but I think they could at least get a point there. Newcastle the week after, away from home, is going to be huge. And then there's a tough run. Tottenham, United, Villa, West Ham, Arsenal, Palace.
That's brutal.
That's a murderer's row. So we could be sitting here in a couple of months' time in the new year and thinking Norwich are again cannon fodder unless they win that Newcastle game.
Yeah, but even looking at that run of results, depending on what kind of Tottenham you catch, or what kind of day you catch Tottenham on, depending on what kind of day you catch Manchester United on, depending on what kind of day you catch Arsenal on.
I think Ronaldo's going to feast on the cannon fodder of this league. Sassuolo, man. Sorry, not Sassuolo. What do they call him in Cremone?
Yeah.
He's...
I love that.
He's a flat track bully, and I think he'll come to the fore.
I certainly don't really see them winning any of those 6 games. I think even, I'm just looking at your screen now, even after the Palace game,
Crotone man, I have been confirmed is the Serie A nickname
man. That's
of
the one.
Ronaldo's Juventus legacy.
But yeah, even after those 6, I'm just looking here. Leicester and Everton are probably not games that they're going to be going into as favourites. Although Everton, unintentional but timely segue, maybe the last team we'll talk about just for a couple of minutes. I boldly, and I admitted it last week, it was probably more out of hope than genuine prediction, thought that Everton might be able to steal a result from Man City. They were absolutely washed away 3-0 at the Etihad Stadium. A cool 78% possession.
A cracking goal from Rodri.
Manchester City. Oh, beautiful. And the Sterling goal, the Jacques Cancelo pass, mamma mia. Incredible. And I hated the commentary and the coverage after was brilliant finish from Raheem Sterling. Yes, it was a fantastic finish, but João Cancelo's pass was, if we're making a ratio of that goal of like what was so great about it, it's 70-30 at least, the João Cancelo ball. I absolutely adore a Trivela pass.
And he's just in the team
gorgeous.
Of the season.
He's
so far.
He's a phenomenal player.
It's him. I'm thinking about the defense of the season. It's him.
Yeah.
Probably the rest of them are probably Chelsea. Players. Rudiger, Reece James, maybe Christensen.
Yeah.
But Cancelo has been outstanding. I think it's underrated how difficult it is to play left fullback as a right footer. And Guardiola was hesitant to use him there consistently for quite some time. Obviously, there are extenuating circumstances as to lack of competition in that position, which we won't go into.
Yes.
But look, he is a phenomenal footballer. And is there an answer to Manchester City's striking dilemma, their lack of a number 9? Is it right under their noses? Cole Palmer.
I've just seen the name you've brought up. He looks, Phil Foden Mark II. He's even a left footer, I think.
Well, if you don't know, that's a good sign.
Yeah, true.
Two-footed.
Very true.
Is a massive asset.
But
and Phil Foden is very two-footed. There's another similarity between the two players. But it's these versatile attacking players. You can't necessarily nail down a position for them. But Guardiola, we know he's always ready to try out a midfield up front. And Cole Palmer looks to fit the bill. Maybe they don't need Dusan Vlahovic or Erling Haaland after all.
Yeah, who would have thought? But yeah, Cole Palmer looks unreal. He's super tall, 189 centimetres. I've got here as a 19-year-old. He might well still grow. Do a Giannis, rock up to off season and
you know who he
grow
reminds
5
me
inches.
Of? I think it's just stature and that sort of languid style. But he reminds me of Havertz.
Yeah, very. It's a great comparison, particularly if he is left-footed, which I will somehow try and find out. But he looks just really, really good, and he scored He scored his first goal in the Champions League. I think in one of the Bruges beatings that they served. I think the away tie in Belgium. But I mean, there's been a little bit of ridicule and jokes and whatever else about Man City and their history, and their club legends, the guys that are given statues are people that they've signed in the last 10 years, your Vincent Kompany's and David Silva's and etc. But you knew that as soon as Phil Foden came out of the academy, you knew that, okay, here we go. He's the first now, and we're going to start to see some proper young talents. So it was a goal off the bench in a 5-1 win against Bruges that he scored. He also scored in a 6-1 win against Wickham, also off the bench in the League Cup earlier in the season. But he looks a massive talent. Again, you mentioned you're spot on with the versatility. How many players Pep Guardiola's tried up front, I don't even know. De Bruyne, Sterling, Jesus, Bernardo Silva's had a bit of time there. Foden's played there, and now Cole Palmer's played
up
there.
Front in a couple of games.
I reckon he probably has, when he probably hit that purple patch of goal scoring.
Yeah, but a striker at Manchester City is in inverted commas because they're so free flowing in terms of the way they interchange positions.
Yeah,
so it's a different role.
A major watch this space for Cole Palmer because
he looks a hell of a talent. And you have to be pretty good to come through the youth academy at Manchester City. 100%. We've got literally all the money in the world, and yet we're going to play you instead of a guy we could spend 50, 60 million pounds on.
Absolutely.
Before we go, Nick, I mean, you mentioned Everton. I think it's just a lack of squad depth there.
Yeah.
They've got 12 players that are decent, and when a couple of those are out, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is biggest miss, and I'm not going to pick Everton for another game, for another win until Dominic Calvert-Lewin is back. Yeah, honestly,
you could be right. I think
he's injured and posing for fashion shoots instead of scoring goals. So
he was on the Sunday Night Football with Carragher the other week as well. He seems
like a good egg. I really like.
He seems like a. Speaking as a Liverpool fan, I regrettably had to purchase an Everton shirt for my my Premier League kit collection. And he was the...
You were forced to.
I had to. I have a Manchester United shirt as well. Ooh. A retro with Van Nistelrooy on the back.
This is heathen behaviour from Liverpool super fan.
I don't really wear either of them, but
it's nice that they're there. And you went for a DCL?
Yes, of course. I did. I once signed him for Portsmouth in a FIFA career mode, and it's been love at first sight ever since. But Everton, the sort of magic pixie dust seems to have worn off on Damari Gray and Andros Townsend, who both, when they signed them in the summer, I thought, you are kidding me.
Bargain bin.
You are kidding me. They're signing these players, and they think they're going to keep pushing for
the
Europe.
Only difference between Damari Gray and all their other dud signings in recent years was the price tag.
Yeah.
Usually he would have cost 30 million.
Exactly.
Instead he was less than I think it was 700k or something.
Yeah,
it was a real bargain deal. Maybe it was 2 million.
2 million euros from Bayer Leverkusen, which was sort of bizarre enough. I actually forgot that he was ever there.
A few the young English players have gone to the Bundesliga recently for minutes and come back stronger, but I don't know if that form, as you say, is sustainable. Two teams in action in the Champions League tomorrow morning. Man City playing PSG and Liverpool with a less important fixture against Porto. Maybe a chance for some squad rotation there.
You do not understand how excited I am for a Takumi Minamino masterclass from the start tomorrow morning.
This is a guy who I think gets more excited about Liverpool reserves than the first team. Anyway,
I've always said I love the League Cup because the second string guys get a chance to play and can actually come in. But
less exciting when there's an injury crisis at centre back and you have to watch Nat Phillips every week.
Yeah, let's not go there. But yes. You're right. 2 games tomorrow. City and PSG is a huge one. Not only will I be going for PSG because I don't really like Man City, but I'll be going for PSG to ensure that they top the group. City comes second in the group, which would mean that Liverpool can't be drawn. Obviously, can't be drawn City in the knockout stages, and therefore, with PSG being top, they won't be drawn with PSG in the round of 16. I don't really think I explained that very well.
No, because English teams can't play each other in the first knockout round. Yeah. I was just doing the mental gymnastics as to how that possibly works. Yeah. But that is the better outcome, isn't it? And the marquee game on the weekend, Chelsea, Manchester United.
Yeah, there's a few good ones, but obviously Chelsea, Man United, going back to the old what they used to call them, Super Saturday or Grand Slam Sunday, I think they used to call it when every season Chelsea, United, Liverpool, and City would probably play against each other on one given weekend.
I don't see that ending well for Carrick personally. We've gone into all the reasons again. We don't need to dive into more Chelsea Man United talk. That was half the show.
Particularly we're talking about Arsenal and playing against big teams. United have folded playing against some of the bigger teams this season, smashed by Liverpool, smashed not necessarily on the scoreline by Man City, but certainly on the pitch a couple of weeks ago, and will probably be a similar result against Chelsea. Man City West Ham is a really good game. Look, I think Man City will still probably win. West Ham had a disappointing defeat to Wolves the weekend just gone, but that will be a tasty game to have a look at. Brighton Leeds all of a sudden becomes a little bit important. One that Brighton will really hope to win and need to win to regather a bit of momentum. Norwich Wolves that we mentioned as well. And
I think Crystal Palace Villa is going to be my picking game, because I think Chelsea's going to roll United. I think City are kind of hard to watch a little bit, even though they play this totalising style. It feels like they're the only team involved in the game, and West Ham are going to sit deep and try and pick up the scraps. So I don't think that's going to be a really entertaining game, but I think Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park is going to be really entertaining end-to-end match.
Steven Gerrard and Patrick Vieira.
A real throwback Premier League years matchup on the sideline, isn't it?
Yeah, will be a good one. And Gerrard, we didn't actually touch on it too much, but of course Gerrard got his first win 2-0 against Brighton on the weekend. It came late, two goals within the last 7 or so minutes. But we spoke about Crystal Palace last week, the form that they've been in. Gerrard's come in, got his first result with Villa. I think that's going to be a really big game. They're two sides that are near enough on the table. Palace in 10th with 16 points. Villa in 15th with 13 points. Will go level with Palace with a win. And considering we've mentioned about 7 of the fixtures, we might as well touch on, or 6 of the fixtures, we might as well just rattle off the rest. Arsenal hosting Leicester in the early one. Or of course, early isn't too early in Melbourne anymore because of good old daylight savings. But they play Newcastle at 11:30 on Saturday night. Liverpool host Southampton, which Liverpool at home against Southampton is... you
expect to beat your feeder club, so you can't be losing that one.
Very true, but in quite a similar way to Liverpool versus Arsenal at Anfield, Liverpool versus Southampton at Anfield has always been typically fruitful for the Reds.
Norwich City Wolves, I'm going for a draw. I think Norwich can get a point there. I think another win might be stretching the bounds of believability of this
for sure.
bounce. But
3 games unbeaten for Norwich, that'd be ludicrous. Who would have thought that could happen?
What a league. Crystal Palace Villa we've talked about. I think it's anyone's game. I think it's going to be score draw. I'm going 2-2. Sitting on the fence again, I know.
Yeah, I wanted to say draw, but now I just feel like I'm copying you.
Go with your gut, easy.
Yeah,
you can agree with me, it's fine.
Draw for me.
Brighton Leeds. I think Brighton finally ends the... oh, God. I think they finally score a goal and win a game. I'm saying 1-0 to Brighton.
Yeah.
Brentford Everton?
Don't say Brentford. Because I'm saying Brentford.
Okay.
Although Brentford themselves, is that 2 losses in a row?
I'm going to say that's going to be a stinker. I think that's going to be a terrible game. I'm going for 0-0. Because Rafa Benitez doesn't like to lose several games in a row. He's going to go super conservative, I think.
Brentford, another team 7 without a win. Again, granted a draw with
and they're
Liverpool.
A transitional masterclass.
Lost to
Brentford
Chelsea
team
when they really didn't need to lose, or shouldn't have lost to Chelsea.
When a team comes out and plays against them, like Liverpool did, they can smash you with these really direct passes and pacey counterattacks. But when you sit deep, as I think Everton will, because Benitez isn't going to want another loss in a row, that will just increase the pressure on him. I think they can be nullified, so I'm going for a 0-0 draw. You're picking Brentford?
I'm going Brentford for the win.
Man City, West Ham, I think it's Man City all the way. They're just flying at the moment, and West Ham can always spring a surprise off a set piece or whatever, but City are just in such a rich goal-scoring vein of form.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going with City as well, but I can see a scenario where West Ham, with your Fornals, your Antonio, your Bowen sort of 3-prong counter-attack, perhaps they can cause a bit of trouble, but I think City should have that pretty comfortably. the Tinkerman returns to the King Power.
Oh, yes. I didn't even think about that narrative.
I only just realised that when I looked at Leicester and Watford.
Are they going to sing Nessun Dorma for him again?
I hope so. Get Andrea Bocelli down. That'd be fantastic. I mean,
dilly ding, dilly dong, or are Watford going to continue their streak?
Well,
after dispatching Manchester United quite simply.
Fantastic form. That's and 9 goals in 2 games as well.
I'm going to say this is the Leicester City bounce back game.
I'm going to go with a draw. I think Watford are clearly on a high at the moment.
Well, you would say that.
Not,
you got a moose on your chest.
True. Maybe it'll be 2 moose one day. Now that we've learnt the plural for moose.
My rationale for that, Watford looked good against Manchester United, but everybody looks good against Manchester United. So Leicester City. You see, Leicester looked amazing against United, dropped off straight afterwards. So.
Well, Leicester beat United 4-2, Watford beat United 4-1, so very similar results. We'll see
honestly
how it goes.
think beating United is the kiss of death for your fortunes, because they make anybody look like world beaters. Burnley, Tottenham, I think, should be a comfortable... not a comfortable one. It's at Burnley, but I think it could be a 1-0 for Antonio Conte there.
Yeah, I think Tottenham should be right. This fixture happened a couple of weeks ago, I think, in the League Cup, and Tottenham really laboured through it. They won in the end. Might have even got to penalties.
Don't think it's going to be one to get up for at 1 in the morning, to be honest. I think
not.
All eyes will be fixed on Super Sunday at Stamford Bridge, where Chelsea are going to rip through United like tissue paper, and it's going to be... I'll go 3-0 and be conservative.
Well, what were you going to say?
I was going to say 4. I think 3-0.
I think United... Oh, no. I was going to say I think United might score, but given the fact that we've just pumped up Chelsea's defence, I won't contradict a major portion of our show. I think Chelsea will have a fair handle on Manchester United there. Well, that'll do us. We've gone overtime again. What to talk about this week? Yeah, plenty to talk about. If you get me ranting about OGS and Man United, we're going to be here all night. Yeah, I did warn you. And whenever Liverpool win 4-0 in a big game, it's easy to wax lyrical. Never a good setup between the two of us. But the equipment has been running for too long. It's getting sweaty in here, so we better bid you adieu. It is very, very dewy in here. It's time to open the door and let some air in. Thank you very much for tuning into the EPL show on FNR. Football Nation Radio will be back next week with some more Champions League, some more Premier League to dissect, and very much looking forward to it. Josh, thank you for your company as well, and we'll catch you all next week. Goodbye for now.